Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, dear brothers and sisters. Welcome to our program, Spiritual Fireside Chat. Inshallah, tonight we are going to culminate our beautiful run, the lecture series with Dr. Aslam Abdullah. As you know, last Thursday we have covered compilation of sacred books of Hinduism, Jainism, and Sikhism, and Buddhism. And tonight, inshallah, Dr. Aslam is going to present for us the history of the compilation of the Qur'an. And again, I would like to remind you that the style of our session is going to be as 40 minutes of presentation, and then we will give you a chance to ask your questions for about 10, 15 minutes. But please post your questions ahead of time, even during the lecture via chat box, so then I can ask the questions to Dr. Aslam. So after the program, we're going to pray Salatul Isha together and finish with a dua, inshallah. So with this, I would like to invite our speaker, Dr. Aslam Abdullah. Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Aslam, welcome.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Wassalatu wassalam ala rasulihil kareem. This is the last of our 4-part series on the compilation of sacred texts. We identified 18 major religions in the world and went over the history of the compilation of 8 of those religions, whose numbers make at least the overwhelming majority of the people who believe in a religion. Today, I want to focus on the compilation of the Qur'an, that we Muslims believe is the last testament and the last revelation of God upon a messenger for humanity. Deen, or what we loosely translate as religion or faith, is in the realm of divinely revealed knowledge. We don't invent deen, we receive it. We believe that it is given to us by a higher authority that is objective and neutral, and that deen is not meant for an ethnicity or a race or a cultural group or historical group, but for people in general. We believe that the higher authority chooses someone to receive the message through an angel. Therefore, we use the terms messenger and the prophets for the person chosen to deliver the divine guidance to humanity. The message confirms that human beings do not make it up. Instead, the Supreme Creator has the interests in his mind and does not favor a race over the other or one ethnicity or culture over the other. The deliverance of the divine message began with the advent of humanity. Some people followed it, others rejected it. Over some time, the divine message got corrupted and lost. Thus, the message was repeated through prophets and messengers to ensure that people never lose sight of the original message. Therefore, every prophet and messenger repeated the same original guidance. The Creator did not confuse human beings of different ages with different messages. The language, the methodology, and the issues changed in the community of a new prophet, but the guidance did not. What was revealed upon Prophet Muhammad is in fact a continuation and finalization of the divine message. The Qur'an appeared when people had lost the original message. In this context, the Creator declared that in the Quran, that he who revealed it would protect it and preserve it. He would enable the Prophet to create conditions ensuring that not a single word of that divine message is lost. If we are serious in our affirmation that God does exist and he guides humanity to a better path, then we must also admit that he would ensure the accuracy of his guidance. He would not leave it to chance to get it compiled or preserved, because one slight mistake in recording or preserving his words could be fatal or crucial. His majesty and organization are visible in everything that exists in this universe. And of course, we can ask, why would he leave his words unprotected, unrecognized, and unorganized? If the previous messages were lost or forgotten, we must assume that he had not planned their preservation. He wanted to preserve the message that he would repeat through a prophet in Arabia for the final time. We must also recognize the fact that only a prophet knew the revelation that was given to him. No other human being other than a prophet experienced it, and no one other than a messenger had the authority or the knowledge to decide or verify the accuracy of that message. While none of the previously revealed books were written or preserved during the lifetime of the messengers and the prophets that delivered that message to human beings, the Qur'an became the first book memorized, compiled, and written during the lifetime of the prophet who had received it. It was verified, checked, approved, and authenticated because he alone had the knowledge and the authority to do so. The question is, how did he do it? The Quran and the books of Ahadith, statements attributed to the Prophet ﷺ, explain the process and the outcome. Even though some references in the writings of Ahadith contradict the divine assertion about the preservation of the Quran, the overwhelming evidence proves that the Quran revealed to the Prophet is the same as we read today. Therefore, the presence of these traditions does not invalidate the authenticity of the Quran. Instead, they reveal their weaknesses. Several anecdotes in our Islamic literature challenge the claim that the Prophet neglected his responsibility to preserve the Quran in his lifetime. For instance, some hadiths assert that Abu Bakr, the first Caliph, is the one who compiled the Quran. Another hadith says that the third Caliph, Usman bin Affan, was the one who appointed a commission to finalize the final version of the Quran. The simple fact is that none other than the Prophet had the knowledge of the Quran that came to him through the direct sources, and he was the only one to determine the accuracy of the divine revelation. A commission might have supervised copying the Quran, but how could it have performed a task that it was not qualified to perform? The Prophet would not have left the compilation of the Quran based on the evidence of other people. It was his duty, and he fulfilled it with utmost responsibility. It is ironic that in many of the Friday sermons, especially in Asian subcontinent, Usman bin Affan gets the credit of compiling or collecting the Quran without realizing that it is the Prophet and not Usman bin Affan who had the responsibility, duty, authority, and legitimacy to assemble and preserve the Quran. Those who say that the compilation of the Quran began at the suggestion of the second Caliph Umar radiallahu ta'ala ignored the simple fact that it was God who had given his word for the protection of the Quran through his messenger, Prophet Muhammad. Those who say that the Prophet did not have leave a completed written copy of the Quran before leaving this world have a very short-sighted understanding of the role of prophethood. Several hadiths also tell us that the Prophet's companion lost several verses of the Quran, hence they were not included in the final version. It is also an accusation and not fact, because if the guidance got lost and no one knew what those verses were, how do we know about their existence? Moreover, if the Prophet did not include them in the Quran, who are we to question the Prophet's decision about their inclusion or exclusion in the book that we call a final divine revelation? Hence, to say that the parts of the Quran were lost is like accusing the Prophet of not doing his work properly. No one in his right mind can ever think that. There is also a claim that the certain verses of the Quran got abrogated by other verses of the Quran. Scholars differ in their identification of these verses. Some say there are 600 and others say there are 3. There is no authentic hadith of the Prophet that informs the believers that what God cancelled some verses, especially when verses in the Quran emphatically state in chapter 15, verse 9, behold, we have bestowed from on high, step by step, this reminder and convey the word to the word, whatever revealed to you of your sustainers writ. Nothing could alter his words, and you can find no refuge other than with him. This is in chapter 18, verse 27. No scholar has the authority to declare a word or a letter abrogated. We cannot just dismiss the divine statement as a mere play of words when it comes to the Quran. Unfortunately, in this case, many have twisted the term of the Quran to assert their viewpoint. These books also say that the written copies of the Quran in the personal use of many companions differed in the inclusion of chapters. First of all, none of those copies exist today. Secondly, whatever was available did not have any contradiction. Thirdly, none of the companions of the Prophet who had these copies ever claimed that they had the authentic reproduction of the Quran verified by the Prophet. In some books of hadith, we also read that the Prophet did not compile the Quran in its final form, and the companions of the Prophet used to carry in a sack or bag the scattered ayahs of the Quran written on stones, leaves, wood, and hide. It suggests that the Prophet did not put the Quran surahs together as the ayahs were scattered. Unless a companion knew the Quran by heart, it was almost impossible for him to put all the scattered ayahs in sequence. Even a Hafiz would find it hard to put together 6,000 pieces written in various forms in the proper series if they are separate. These traditions promote the idea that the preservation of the Quran was not the priority of the Prophet. While the Quran says your duty is to convey the message. When the Prophet addressed over 1,000 people in his final Hajj sermon, he asked, did I convey the message to completely? And each one of them responded, yes. He did not say part of the message or the message communicated verbally only. The authenticity of Islam depends on the accuracy of the Quran and the integrity of the Prophet. It rests on the assertion that it is the same as was revealed to Prophet Muhammad, and that he ensured that it was preserved forever through efforts that all well documented, and we'll come to that in a minute. It also rests on the fact that nothing was added or removed from the Quran. Unfortunately, our Islamic literature has narrations which sometimes point to an illusion that the Quran is not the same as we read today. This loyalty to Deen rests on the simple fact that whatever we follow in the name of Deen is divine, and the scripture is complete and does not have any human addition or deletion. Unfortunately, many books on the Quran probably unconsciously promote the idea that the Prophet did not compile the Quran in his lifetime. The Quran refutes this and authenticates the integrity of the Prophet in preserving the final divine message. The scholars tend to believe that the historians who wrote their work 300 years after the Prophet then to the Quran compiled and maintained in his lifetime. The Quran was not for Arabs, even though the language was Arabic, and the Prophet who delivered this message was an Arab. The guidance of the Quran for all human beings and for all times. In other words, those who did not know the Arabic language were also the Quran's addressees. O Muhammad, tell them, O humankind, I am the messenger of Allah to all of you. Chapter 7, verse 158. It was for the contemporaries of the Prophet as well as for those who would come after him, and beside them, even to others who have not yet joined them, Arabic speaking and non-Arabic speaking as well. And the Quran declares in chapter 62, verse 3, it means you are the messenger to those who are to come after them. The Quran includes everything that was revealed to all previous messengers, as the Quran says, chapter 5, verse 48, and we reveal to you this book based on truth. It will validate in real earnest all the assertions made in the previously revealed book and testified. And it has subsumed all the teachings of those books. The Quran introduces itself as Allah's guidance based on truth and justice, have been outlined in this book in a complete form. None has the authority to make any change in these laws. Chapter 15, verse 9. God commanded the Prophet, chapter 18 verse 27, present to them the message given to you, O Rasul. None shall change Allah's words. Not a single word of the Quran has changed since the time of its revelation. Chapter 15, verse 9, there is no doubt that it is we ourselves who have bestowed the Quran step by step, and we shall see its preservation. There is nothing in the Quran that is contrary to the truth. The Ummah, the untruth, the wrong, the falsehood from anywhere, neither from the front nor from the back, will ever come by it. Chapter 41, verse 42. Thus, in our words today, the Quran is the only divinely revealed book that exists in its original form, word by word. Even though people attempted to prove that the companions of the Prophet and not the Prophet compiled the book, the Quran and the book of Hadith confirms the following facts. The Quran, as we read today in Arabic, is the same as it was during the time of the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet compiled it under his supervision, as he was the only one who received the divine revelation. There were several copies of the entire Quran available to companions during his lifetime. As we find in the Quran today, the order of surah is the same as it was at the Prophet's time. There were scores of companions, men and women, who knew the Quran by heart. The Quran was the only source that the Prophet used to educate people about Allah's guidance. The Quran that we read today is the same as that of the people who followed him and the succeeding generations after him. They transmitted it through the written words as well as orally. There was no difference in pronunciation of the Quran as well. The Prophet ensured that every revelation is preserved in the writing and memory, as he was fully aware of the changes people had brought to their scriptures previously. Let's come to the practice of writing at the time of the Prophet. The practice of writing and reading was not uncommon among the people of Arabia at the time of the Prophet. The Quran urges the people in chapter 2, verse 284, whenever you enter into the matter about giving loans for a particular period, commit it to writing. The Quran explains that writing establishes the evidence, chapter 2, verse 282. Thus, the Quran asserts this revelation is preserved in such scrolls, which are the most respect-worthy, the holiest, the most cleansed, are of the highest grandeur, free of every inkling of any error, of any human inclination, pristine, sacred it is by the calligraphers, held of high esteem and exalted prestige in the society. The Quran, that is in chapter 80, verse 13 and 16, the Quran even mentioned that it is that it is written on spread out parchment, 52 verse 2, 3, or it is the most esteemed, the noblest Quran preserved and conserved in the form of a book, chapters 56 verse 77 and 8. So there were at least 41 companions of the Prophet whose names we know, who knew how to write and read and who were the scribers of the Quran. They include Hanzala bin Rabi, Umar bin Rafi, Rafi bin Malik, Saad bin Ibadah, Usaid bin Hadir, Maula Aisha, Abdul Rahman bin Ur bin Umar bin Zaid, Abdullah bin Saeed, and so on and so forth. The tradition of writing was present among Arabs when the Prophet began his mission. He patronized it and improved it. For example, during the Battle of the Badr, 70 members of the Meccan army became prisoners. The Prophet asked them to teach at least 10 youth of Medina how to read and write. When these young people excel in the art of reading and writing, the prisoners were released. This is what is found, we find in Tabaqat ibn Sa'd, volume 2, page 14. In Medina, one of the first tasks the Prophet assigned to Abdullah bin Saeed was to teach the people of Medina how to read and write the Quran. Yahya Barmaki was the first one who introduced paper for writing among Arabs. This is what Muqaddimah ibn Khaldun says. Some people suggest that it was Hajjaj bin Yusuf who introduced it first, but it was Yahya Barmaki. The Khurasan paper with cotton became popular during the time of Bani Umayyad, and many historians assert that it predates the Umayyad period as the Chinese first introduced it in Khurasan, as we find in Sanjatul Tarb. In his book, Miftahul Afkar, the author records several letters and treaties written at the time of the prophets and at his insistence to different tribes and rules. The agreement of Hudaybiyah was one of them. History also tells us that the famous Muallaqat, known as Sab'a Muallaqat, hanged on the door of the Kaaba in writing during the Prophet's time in Mecca. There were two popular methods used during that time to put things in writing. People used to write on thin parchment prepared from the hides of animals, known as riq. The Quran also uses this word. There was also something called mahriq. Lisanul Arab describes mahriq as an excellent thin hide produced for writing. The Quran also uses the word qirtas as a material used for writing, as it says in chapter 6, verse 7, if we had sent into these a written message on parchment so that they could touch it with their hands, that is, unbelievers would have been sure to say, this is nothing but obvious magic. For no true understanding of God, when they say, never has God revealed anything unto men, say, who has bestowed from on high the divine writ which Moses brought unto men as a light and guidance, and which you treat as mere leaves of paper, making a show of them the while you conceal so much, although you have been taught by it what neither you nor your forefathers had ever known. Say, God has revealed that divine writ, and then leave them to play their vain talk. This is chapter 6, verse 91. The paper was in use at the time of the prophet and at the time of the revelation, and the gods used the word to emphasize the importance of writing. The prophet was very particular about availability of the means of writing to him. It was to ensure the writing of the message of Allah instantly. For instance, during the journey to Medina, which we call the migration, the migrating caravan carried a pen, ink pot, and paper. The letter written to Suraqa, who was chasing him during the trip, provides evidence to this fact. Thus, it is evident that many Muslims knew how to read and write at the time of the Prophet. The writing material was readily available, and the community of believers under the leadership of the Prophet was aware of preserving the divine revelations in writing. Therefore, the Prophet would instantly ask the available scribes to write down the revelation and teach the believers to memorize that particular portion that was revealed to him. The Suraqa's stories explains that the Prophet was so concerned that in case if the revelation appears during that journey, he should have the provision to get it written down so that no one could say that he forgot or things were added and deleted at the instance of other people. The Qur'an was the text the Prophet used to teach Allah's revelation to people. The best among you is the one who learns the Qur'an and teaches it. This is what is attributed to Uthman bin Affan in Bukhari. The one who reads the Qur'an is like fruit that tastes good and whose smell is also good. And the one who does not read it is like a good date, but that does not have a good smell. This is Abu Musa in Bukhari. On the day of judgment, the reciters of the Qur'an would be asked to read the Qur'an the way they used to recite in the word and climb up. And wherever their recitation completes, that place would become their home. This is Abdullah ibn Umar in Ahmad and Tirmizi and Abu Dawud and Nasai is reporting. The Prophet said that he was communicated to sit in the company of those who read and write the Quran. This is Abu Sa'id in Abu Dawud. Usman bin Abi al-As reported that as part of the delegation of Banu Thaqif, I came to the Prophet and he taught me to read the Quran. This is Tabqat ibn Sa'id, volume 7, page 27. Ibn Masud reported that we used to learn 10 ayahs from the Prophet in one lesson, and after we had memorized, we would learn the next 10 through the writings that we have. This is Bukhari. Abu Darda reported that he read the entire Quran from the Prophet. This is in the Bukhari. It is reported that the Prophet ﷺ asked the people to learn the Quran from Ibn Masud through his writings. Salim Maula Abu Hudayfa reports in Bukhari. Ubadah bin As-Samit reported that whenever any would migrate to Medina, the Prophet would connect him to the one of his companions who had the written copies of the Quran, whatever revealed at that particular time. During the 10th Hijri Ramadan, 10 people from the tribe of Amir accepted Islam. As long as they remain in Medina, they learned the Quran from Ubay ibn Ka'b. This is what we read in Muqaddimah ibn Khaldun. The same year, people from the tribe of Bani Hanifa accepted Islam, and they also read the Quran from Ubay ibn Ka'b. It is reported that Khubab bin al-Arat used to teach the Quran to his sister, to the sister of Umar bin Khattab, and her husband regularly from the written material. After the conquest of Mecca, the Prophet asked Maaz ibn Jabal to teach the Qur'an. So in the 10th Hijrah, Maaz went to Jabal to start giving mass education of the Qur'an. When the people of Dawla and Azal accepted Islam, the Prophet sent Marshal Asim Khubayb Khalid bin Bakr, Zaid bin Dathna, and Abdullah ibn Tariq to teach them the Qur'an from the written scripts. Whenever any tribe would come to Medina to accept Islam, the Prophet would appoint a companion to teach them the Qur'an from the written scrolls and instruct them to accompany the tribe back to their place to help them acquire the knowledge of the divine revelation. During the 4th Hijrah, when one of the tribal leaders of Najd came to Medina, he requested Qur'an teachers for his people. As a result, some 70 teachers of the Qur'an went with him. If the number of instructors exceeded 70 in the Hijrah's initial stages, one does not have to guess the importance of learning and reading and writing and teaching the Qur'an during the Prophet's lifetime. Thus, the spirit of learning and teaching the Qur'an was a norm of the time. Everyone knew a part of or full of the revealed Qur'an. The Qur'an was the textbook, the Qur'an was the curriculum, and the Qur'an was the applied science of the time. Now let's come to the writings of the Qur'an specifically. There were several companions of the Prophet who knew how to read and write. Among them were Abu Abbas bin Hir, Ubay bin Ka'b, Asad bin Rabi, Sahud bin Sa'id, Aus ibn Zayd, Aus bin Khawli, Usaid bin Huzair, Saad bin Ubadah, Rafi bin Malik, Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, Ali, and many others. Ibn Abdul Bir mentions the name of at least 24 companions who were always available to put words in writing for the Prophet. Among them were Ubay ibn Ka'b, Zayd bin Sabit, Abdullah bin Sa'ad, Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, Ali, Zubair ibn Affam, Khalid bin Sa'id, Hanzala, Khalid ibn Walid, Abdullah ibn Rawah, Muhammad bin Sufyan, Hajam bin As-Sult, and Muaqib bin Fatima, Sharjil bin Hassan, and Abdullah bin Arqam. Thus, the Quran was not only in the memory of hundreds of companions, male and female, but also in writing at the time of the Prophet. The Quran was memorized by hundreds of the companions of the Prophet. As the Quran says, chapter 29, verse 49, these are the lucid verses preserved in the hearts of the people who have been bestowed with the knowledge of Wahy. There was a master copy of the Quran. It was in a box near the pillar of the pulpit at Prophet's Mosque. It was the same copy that the messenger used to ask the calligraphers to write the revealed verses. Its name was Imam or in their dialect, and the name of the pillar was Astawana Mashal. Sitting by the pillar, the companions under the messenger supervision wrote many copies. Professor Hamidullah, a noted Islamic scholar of our century, who passed away in 2001, he wrote, the sources all agree in stating that whenever a fragment of the Quran came down, the Prophet called one of his literate companions and dictated to him, and the Prophet Muhammad also recommended that the faithful learn the Quran by heart. Thus, the method of doubly preserving the text both in writing and by memorization proved extremely precious. From this copy, several copies were made and distributed in all parts of the Muslim world. The first Caliph of Islam, Abu Bakr, asked the Prophet ﷺ's chief scribe, Zayd ibn Sabit, to make copies of the Quran, not to compile it. Abu Bakr asked the Prophet, scribe to write it down. Caliph Umar ibn Khattab subsequently made a single volume mushaf that he preserved and gave on his death to his daughter Hafsa. the Prophet's widow. Imam Ibn Hazm has noted down in his book Kitab al-Fisl that during the period of the first Caliph, there was no city where the inhabitants had not had several personal copies of the Qur'an. And during the period of Caliph Umar, the number of written copies of the majestic work, the Qur'an, was not less than 100,000. The third Caliph, Usman ibn Affan, asked a commission to prepare 7 or 8 copies of the Quran from the master copy. One of his authentic copies was in Medina. A 3rd century researcher, Abu Ubaidah al-Qasim ibn Salam, in his Kitab al-Qira'at, claims to have seen that copy of the Quran. Ibn Battuta, a Muslim traveler, says Abu Bakr al-Shashi placed it on Abdullah's shrines. When the Belarusian Soviet Socialist Republic came into being, this very copy of the Quran came to the Bolshevik hands. The information regarding this copy published in a Soviet journal in 1995 indicated that this is the very copy that Usman ibn Affan was in Timur's library, established in 1393 AD. After the Russian Revolution in 1970, this copy of the Quran reached Ulfa through Muslim representatives of the Russian parliament. Then it was brought to Tashkent, and the historical copies of the Quran of Mazhab Usmani published in the Journal of Ulum Islamiyah, December 1961. It was published by Aligarh Muslim University. Fakhri Pasha, the governor of Turkey, and other sacred documents took this copy to Constantinople, and now it is there. Shibli Nomani, a noted biographer of the Prophet, in his writing, is said to have seen a copy of the original Quran in Damascus, the University of Damascus, in 1896. One copy of the Quran is in Paris. Another is in the Library of Egypt. Several copies of the Quran written by messengers' companions are in various libraries and museums of India, Iran, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, and Turkey. In Istanbul Library, there are copies of the Quran written by Usman ibn Affan. Ali ibn Talib wrote in his writing, and this copy is in Istanbul. Other handwritten copies of Quran, including Zainul Abidin and Zaid ibn Sabit, Usman, Hassan ibn Ali, and Sajjad are in the museum archaeological section of Iran. Morris Bucaille, in his book, The Bible, the Quran and Science, writes that the Quran got written down at the time of the Prophet. The Quran is a book of written revelation. As the revelation progressed, the Prophet and the believers following them recited the text by heart, and the scribes also wrote it down in his following. Long before the Prophet ﷺ left Mecca for Medina, in Medina, the Quranic text so far revealed had been written down, as Morris Bucaille writes in his book on page 128. The Quran itself, therefore, provides indications as to the fact that it was set down in writings at the time of the Prophet. It is a known fact that there were several scribes in his following, the most famous of whom is Zayd ibn Sabit, has left his name to posterity. It is on page 129. In 2019, the University of Cambridge displayed a manuscript of the Quran written during the Prophet's lifetime. Thus, we can say with surety that the fact is well established that the Quran was preserved in writing in its complete form, the same way we have today that was at the time of the Prophet. One of the hadiths of the Prophet ﷺ, one of the statements attributed to Abdullah ibn Abbas is that the Prophet left the Quran in the Fatan, what is in between the two covers. And the practice of Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala and Osman bin Affan was that he would ask for that copy that was in the hands of Hafsa radiallahu ta'ala and would instruct the copiers to copy it. So the assertion here is that the Prophet was fully aware of his responsibilities. And the Prophet knew what is his responsibility in ensuring that the words are not only left in the memory of the individuals, because the memories sometimes might betray based on one's health, one's own conditions, but the written material would be there forever. So in 1942, a German institute collected some 46,000 copies of the Qur'an from different parts of the world to determine the accuracy. And they did not find a single copy that differed from each other. I personally have seen two very important manuscripts. One is in the library in Rampur in India, where a written copy of the Qur'an written by Ali radiallahu ta'ala is preserved. And the other is in the family of Shah Waliullah in the town of Pulat in India, where it is written on riq. The entire Qur'an is written on the riq. And it is still preserved. And I went over that Qur'an, comparing it with the available Qur'ans, and I did not find a single difference, even in pronunciation and in writing. So it can be asserted without any doubt that the only written scripture that is verified by the one who claimed that he was receiving it is none other than the Qur'an. And that is what basically need to be emphasized, that we are not following it as an outcome of historical writing or historical perspective. We are following the Qur'an as the assertive, final, authentic, verified book that includes the ultimate words and last guidance of God Almighty. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم. I will stop here, and then now we have time for questions.
Thank you so much, Dr. Aslam, for this beautiful, informative, and detailed presentation. Now I'm looking for the questions. There's one question, but in the meantime, I would like to remind our participants again, please post your questions via chat box. And the first question is off the topic, but I will inshallah read. Says, what do you believe is the role of interfaith relations in the world today?
It is a crucial thing that we Muslims get involved in interfaith dialogue and interfaith work. Because this is a forum that gives us an opportunity to explain to others who we are and what we believe in. People have their own assumptions about our religion. They have their own historical understanding. They did not understand, they did not get to know us through us. They have learned us through either their historical narrations or through the books written about us, or they have read the Quran but read it within their own cultural and political context. If we do not engage with people of other faith and explain to us who we are and what we believe in, who else is going to tell them? Revelation is not going to come again. God is not going to come down on earth again. So we have to be part of that interfaith movement. And we have to be part of interfaith movement to explain who we are, to convey to others what we believe on every matter, whether it relates to environment, or whether it relates to crime, whether it relates to education, whether it relates to the rights of people, anything about human dignity, so it is essential that we participate, and we participate in humility. Lakum dinukum waliyadin, for us, is the belief system that we have vouchsafed. For them is their own belief system. And then the Prophet ﷺ is reported in the Qur'an saying, "I'malu ala makanatikum inni amilun fasawfa ta'lamun." If you don't accept our assertions about our belief system, we are not going to change our belief system. But we are not going to hurt you and harm you for your belief system. You do whatever you want to do. And the results will tell you who is on the right path. And the results at the time of the Prophet ﷺ were clearing. All those who first denied the message were the ones who accepted that message in the end. Not as a result of violence, though it is not the topic, but Prophet ﷺ participated in, or there were 81 skirmishes and fights and wars and battles during the time of the Prophet ﷺ. He participated in 41 of them. Those who say that Islam is spread by swords should learn this fact, that in these battles, 81, the total number of hours of these battles were no more than 24 hours. Total in these 41 skirmishes. I'm talking about the physical fighting, actual fighting. And the number of people who were killed were 478. Out of that, 201 were Muslims, and the rest were non-Muslims. Sorry, 278 were Muslims, and the rest were non-Muslims. Have you ever seen any revolution, any change of ideas in the thinking of people with such little bloodshed? In the last century, more than 51 million people were killed to promote democracy and human rights. And still the killing has been going. So interfaith is crucial for us. We should be the one who should be a leading partner in the interfaith movement. And to say that we don't have to do anything with that, I think is a negation of the Quranic message that convey what you believe to others who do not know what you believe.
Thank you so much, Dr. Aslam. I don't see any other questions, but I just wanted to put the flyer that we had the series. Dear brothers and sisters, you see the past discussions as well. If you missed any of these discussions, you can always go back to our Facebook account or YouTube account and listen. And I strongly urge you to listen each and every one of them if you missed it, inshallah. So other than that, let me see if there's any other question. I don't see anything. And on behalf of Islamic Center of Southern California and our community members, our participants, I thank you so much, Dr. Aslam, from the bottom of my heart for this beautiful lecture series and the beautiful run. Alhamdulillah, we learned a lot. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you and bless your family members. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I would like to thank Islamic Center of Southern California and you personally
Thank you.
for giving me that opportunity to share whatever my understanding about the religious texts and sacred text is. And I am not claiming that I have all the information about all other religions and their text, or even 1% of what has been written down. But whatever I knew, I tried to communicate earnestly, with all sincerity and with all honesty, without any biases towards any religion and any community. And I thank you once again for this invitation. And inshallah, in the future, if I am called upon, I would be available as well.
It is always great honor to have you, Dr. Aslam. Inshallah, soon we will have another program, and we will hear your khutbahs in December, I believe.
Yes, December 3rd, inshallah.
Inshallah. Until we see you, thank you so much and have a great night, inshallah.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. And dear brothers and sisters, we are going to pray Salat al-Isha, inshallah. So let me prepare the screen for you, inshallah.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله اللهم رب هذه الدعوة التامة والصلاة القائمة آت محمدا الوسيلة والفضيلة والدرجة الرفيعة وابعثه مقاما محمودا الذي وعدته إنك لا تخلف الميعاد الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله الله أكبر سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين إن هذا القرآن يهدي للتي هي أقوم ويبشر المؤمنين الذين يعملون الصالحات أن لهم أجرا كبيرا وأن الذين لا يؤمنون بالآخرة أعتدنا لهم عذابا أليما ويدعو الإنسان بالشر دعاءه بالخير وكان الإنسان عجولا وجعلنا الليل والنهار آيتين فمحونا آية الليل وجعلنا آية النهار مبصرة لتبتغوا فضلا من ربكم ولتعلموا عدد السنين والحساب وكل شيء فصلناه تفصيلا. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. أقم الصلاة لدلوك الشمس إلى غسق الليل وقرآن الفجر إن قرآن الفجر كان مشهودا ومن الليل فتهجد به نافلة لك عسى أن يبعثك ربك مقاما محمودا وقل رب أدخلني مدخل صدق وأخرجني مخرج صدق واجعل لي من لدنك سلطانا نصيرا وقل جاء الحق وزهق الباطل إن الباطل كان زهوقا وننزل من القرآن ما هو شفاء ورحمة للمؤمنين ولا يزيد الظالمين إلا خسارا. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. تحيات لله. ولا السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. استغفر الله، استغفر الله، استغفر الله العظيم الذي لا إله إلا هو. اللهم أنت السلام ومنك السلام، تبارك يا ذا الجلال والإكرام. اللهم أعنا على ذكرك وشكرك وحسن عبادتك. سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله والله أكبر، ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الله لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم، لا تأخذه سنة ولا نوم، له ما في السماوات وما في الأرض، من ذا الذي يشفع عنده إلا بإذنه، يعلم ما بين أيديهم وما خلفهم، ولا يحيطون بشيء من علمه إلا بما شاء، وسع كرسيه السماوات والأرض، ولا يؤوده حفظهما، وهو العلي العظيم. صدق الله العظيم. سبحان الله، سبحان الله، سبحان الله، سبحان الله، سبحان الله. الحمد لله، الحمد لله، الحمد لله. الله أكبر، الله أكبر، الله أكبر. الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، له الملك وله الحمد، يحيي ويميت وهو على كل شيء قدير. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، الرحمن الرحيم، مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين، اهدنا الصراط المستقيم، صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. اللهم حبب إلينا الإيمان وزينه في قلوبنا، وكره إلينا الكفر والفسوق والعصيان، واجعلنا من الراشدين. Oh Allah, make faith dear to us and beautified in our hearts, and make disbelief, sin and disobedience dislike to us, and make us among the rightly guided. اللهم يا مقلب القلوب ثبت قلوبنا على دينك وطاعتك. Oh Allah, you are the controller of the hearts. Turn our hearts to your religion and obedience. اللهم أرنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه، وأرنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه. Oh Allah, show us the truth as true and inspire us to follow it, and show us falsehood as falsehood and inspire us to abstain from it. اللهم اشف مرضانا وارحم موتانا. اللهم اغفر للمؤمنين والمؤمنات والمسلمين والمسلمات الأحياء منهم والأموات، إنك سميع قريب مجيب الدعوات. O Allah, grant healings for those who are sick, and have mercy upon the souls of those who passed away. Forgive their shortcomings and mistakes, and accept them in the paradise. آمين. وصل اللهم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين، والحمد لله رب العالمين. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. آمن الرسول بما أنزل إليه من ربه والمؤمنون كل آمن بالله وملائكته وكتبه ورسله لا نفرق بين أحد من رسله وقالوا سمعنا وأطعنا غفرانك ربنا وإليك المصير. لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها لها ما كسبت وعليها ما اكتسبت ربنا لا تؤاخذنا إن نسينا أو أخطأنا ربنا ولا تحمل علينا إصرا كما حملته على الذين من قبلنا ربنا ولا تحملنا ما لا طاقة لنا به واعف عنا واغفر لنا وارحمنا أنت مولانا فانصرنا على القوم الكافرين. صدق الله العظيم. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. الفاتحة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept our prayers, our du'as, dear brothers and sisters. Thank you very much for joining us tonight and see you next time, inshallah. Tomorrow is Friday, Blessed Friday, and the program is going to start at 12:45 with Quranic recitation, and the khutbah starts at 1 o'clock. Until I see you, inshallah, again, have a great night. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.